So if you're joining us, I put in the chat window a couple of documents. One of them was attached to the calendar invitation.
Yes, got
Okay.
it. The
All right.
workbook.
Yes, the workbook. And then there is also a Google Sheet that you may or may not want. If you've already got a CRM, then you can use that. But, for a lot of people, they're looking at starting a process or they don't like their CRM or their CRM isn't working for whatever reason or whatever. It's kind of a nice alternative. So we'll be talking about that as well. And if you could enter into the chat which phase of your marketing or sales and marketing or smarketing, to borrow a phrase from the internet, are you having the most trouble with? And, in our usual tradition of providing way more information than you could possibly use at one sitting, we've got a 15-page workbook for a 1-hour meeting. So we're obviously not going to be able to cover everything today, but I wanted everybody to walk out of here with something that they can use. And I know this is not a one-size-fits-all group, so that is all fun. Yeah, usually prospecting is the one that people ask the most questions about. And, if you're a startup, if you are just getting back into business after a little bit of a pause, other things like that, prospecting is usually a good default procedure and things like that. Stella, do you mind watching the chat for anything that you need to let me know about and kind of moderating?
I can do that.
Thank you.
I can do that.
I really appreciate that. That helps me kind of focus on what we're talking about and not get too saturated.
So Paula, I would say before we say what's the hardest thing for us, maybe you could do like a 3-second definition of each one, and then we can better.
Okay, excellent. So if you have, and this is an assumption on my part, most of the marketing textbooks and other things have a thing they call a marketing funnel. Our cycle is kind of the same thing. And I realize this is spinning on you, which probably wasn't the best design idea while I'm asking you questions about it. But, usually people start with prospecting, making an approach, entering a holding pattern, making a sale, and a lot of them end there. And then, some of them make it an hourglass and say, you get referrals and testimonials after you get the sale. We make it actually a cycle because in the aviation industry, most of our prospects are not new to us or to people that we know, of course. So it's more of a cycle than it is a funnel. So I guess the question is, do you have the most trouble getting people in for the first time, meeting them for the first time, making approaches? What do you say to them? How do you turn the relationship from an informational relationship or a friendship into a transactional relationship? How do you get them to actually buy something from you, right? The holding pattern is a phase where somebody may be a good prospect. They have the money, the authority, and the need to buy from you, but not right now for whatever reason. And that would be probably 80% of the people, of the prospects in your market right now are in a situation where they can't make a purchase because they're waiting for a budget, they're waiting for approval, they're waiting for an airplane, they're waiting for a regulatory change. There's some reason that they're not buying from you yet. Sales, of course, and referrals and testimonials is, basically after the sale, how the relationship can continue from that point forward. All right. So, anything in the chat we need to respond to, Stella, or we'll carry on?
Nope.
All right.
Totally empty.
All right. Fantastic. Okay. So why do we talk about processes in the aviation industry? Why don't we just focus on those stellar performances, those one-time, one-hit wonders, those one-night stands or whatever it is? But I had to laugh because when I put one-night stand into Canva, it gave me a one-night stand. So it's basically a one-night stand versus a relationship. In the aviation industry, we are all about relationships, simply because if we were in real estate or if we were selling candy bars or if we were selling cars or something like that, we might make one sale to a customer and never see that customer again. That very seldom happens in the aviation industry, which is part of the reason that I love this industry. It's the same group of people that we are always selling to. And of course, we always have to expand that same group of people, but we're always building relationships instead of, working on a single transaction at any given time. So, that's why we talk about the relationships versus events. The other thing about processes is that you can automate them. You can automate some portions of them, and just like, has anybody seen Iron Man, seen the movie? And I don't remember which version of the movie it was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, where Tony Stark sends his robot on a date with his wife, Pepper Potts. Basically, he says, I'm hosting you. He has a cheese platter and everything else, and he wants to listen to her about her day and everything else. And as it turns out, it's not really Tony Stark. It is Iron Man, the Iron Man suit that is acting like Tony Stark. While he's working in the basement doing his thing, he sent his robot to go entertain Pepper Potts. It did not go over well. And so I think in a lot of cases, we can overdo the automation in terms of relationships and things. We can automate some sections of this in terms of finding prospects, in terms of some of those functions that leave us more time to build relationships and to actually have conversations with human beings and so on. Trent, to your point, a little bit more about what we just said. We're putting together a cycle, and what we do with each of our clients is help them create a cycle that makes it easier for them to do business so that they can focus on doing business and providing the best possible value for their customers and things, rather than reinventing the wheel, literally, every single time they try to sell something. So if we can create a great process and automate the parts of it that can be automated and get you really good skills for the parts of it that can't be automated, then I think we're miles and miles ahead of where anybody else comes out in this world, right? So processes and series of processes. Okay. So, and this one, I just wanted to, maybe you can put in the chat window, what is your biggest problem with processes? And I will tell you, for me, it's two things. One is fear of accountability. I hate making sales calls. I do not want anybody telling anybody else that I didn't make my sales calls this week. I do not like being held accountable. That's why I'm the boss. And that's, probably my biggest fear or my biggest resistance of processes is if I build a process, then I am kind of accountable for making that process work. And, a lot of people in organizations find, and I'll tell you a story on the next slide about a group of people who were all in on the outcome, but they didn't trust each other enough to do the processes. So, that's often a problem is, if you feel like the people who are building the processes don't have my best interests at heart, then, of course, the processes are going to work against you rather than with you. So, that's kind of a misalignment with personal goals. That would be a number 8. Concerns about micromanagement. I totally get that. I hate being micromanaged. Previous negative experiences. Of course, we all dislike being subject to things that we don't agree with or that have backfired on us in the past. Big one in this industry, I think, is number 3, overconfidence in personal expertise. I feel like I'm the best salesman in the world. And I'm a broker that's been in the business for a number of years, or I'm a salesperson for parts that's been in the business for a number of years. I know how to do this better than anybody else. I don't need a process telling me what to do. I certainly don't need a machine telling me what to do or anything along those lines. So, I get that as well. So, a lot of companies don't talk about these things because they feel like they can just shove them under the rug. But I really do believe in this section of the art of war. If you know what the problem is, and in this case, it's not the enemy, it's the problem, right? So the problem is the enemy. If you understand the problem, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. But if you know yourself, but not the problem, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat, right? So I know myself. I know that I will do everything in my power to avoid doing tasks that I dislike. So that's my self-knowledge, I guess, coming out there. And that's why I need to build processes that will work with my personality, right? And that will work with my team. And Stella knows how that works because we're all super busy. We're all part-time. We all have a million things going on. We all have travel, right? And kids and everything else. So yeah, the processes need to work for us and not the other way around. This is, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is something that, basically you can diagnose and solve the problems, with the processes in your organization. Um, you know, if it's number one, look up number one on this page, whatever it is that you circled or entered into the chat or, whatever it is, that problem can be solved. There is a way to solve that problem if you understand what it is. And in most cases, organizations in the past have always been really authoritarian. They say, well, I'm paying you, so you have to follow the process. But it doesn't work that way. People are way too creative and people are way too good at wiggling out of whatever it is. So they'll blame the CRM, they will blame the process, they'll blame the software, they'll blame the internet, they'll blame everything that they can to get out of following a process they don't like, unless it works in their favor and unless they're in alignment with it.
One thing that isn't in here exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it talks about rebuild trust down at the bottom, but if you trust your team members
Mm-hmm.
and they trust you, then all you got to do is tell them what it is you need and stand back.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
That's in a high performing team. So,
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And
having been in one of those a couple times, it's impressive.
yeah. And the story I was going to tell is basically, if you are in a situation where, and we were working with a company that had a situation where we were talking with the individual salespeople, doing some coaching about sales. And one of the salespeople told me, I feel cheated out of a commission. And it was a situation where the process was iffy, it was not well defined. But the decision was made that this person didn't get a commission for something that they thought that they had worked really hard on and that they were really invested in. So because of that, no process is going to work with that person ever again until you rebuild the trust among the team. So anything you tell that person is bullshit until proven otherwise, right? So, on any team or any process, you have to honor your word and you have to make sure that it works in favor of your people as well as against your people. So if it holds them accountable, it also has to hold you accountable, right? So you have to be as much all in on this as anybody else if you're the boss and make sure that you're following through, because your ability to implement a great process is only as good as the relationships on your team. So if they trust you, then you can provide tools, you can provide process, you can provide any of these things that you want, and they will work a whole lot better because your people will be invested in them. They'll be improving the processes. They'll be contributing to the processes. Every time we do a content batch with our group, the process gets a little bit better because, we learn something from each other and we get better at that. Okay, so here's an example of a process, and this is probably the one that we're going to spend the most time on because prospecting is something that everybody needs to do, and we do have an entire workshop on prospecting. Also, in the chat window, I added a Google sheet that we use that's based on this process. So, if your CRM is the problem, try simplifying. Another thing that we talked about before is that the tools serve the processes. We wrote an article on Monday about how everybody hates their CRM, and often it's because the CRM is misconfigured. If you buy a CRM and take all the defaults and it doesn't fit the way that you do business, then it's going to be very, very difficult to make this work. So if you simplify the tools and focus on the process first, what do we need to do to acquire to do our prospecting? What do we need to do? First thing we need to do is to have a source of leads. In some cases that's LinkedIn, in some cases that's JetNet, in some cases that is leads coming into our website that are downloading a resource, whatever it is. In some cases it's Lead Feeder, which is a piece of software that we use on people's websites to identify people that come to their site. So we get a lead or a prospect from whatever source it is. We do some research and connect with them on LinkedIn or, whatever we're most comfortable with. This process uses two media, email and voicemail or voice phone, So phone calls and emails, very, very old school. You can change this to anything you like. We do recommend that it be phone calls and something else, but it can be phone calls and LinkedIn direct messages. It can be phone calls and, handwritten notes if you're really, really old school. Whatever it is, if you are alternating two sources, that builds your credibility and, helps you establish that relationship. And you'll notice that this is 8 steps. So, different touches because people are busy on different days. They're not able to respond to you, etc. And as long as you're doing this in a way that is respectful and you're not repeating the same information, you're using a different outline for each of these processes, this works pretty well. So, and you'll notice on each of these, we have required tools and then we have helpful but not required. So don't get hung up on the fact, I don't have a CRM, so I can't do prospecting. That is BS, right? You can do it with a Google Sheet. And that's why we're using this as our example today is because, you can do this with very, very simple tools. Internet, phone, email, and a spreadsheet. Whether you use our Google Doc, that is in the chat window or whether you use something else. It can be something super, super simple.
As in paper.
As in paper, as in a whiteboard, right? Don't get hung up on the tools. In fact, the simpler the tool, the easier it is to change the process as you learn about your specific market, your specific prospects. You learn that nobody's in the office on Fridays. Okay, we're not making we're not making phone calls on Fridays. If you learn that, people respond better to LinkedIn messages than emails, you can swap that out in your process and you can make the changes to your process much more easily if it is in a spreadsheet or on a whiteboard than if it's hard coded in a CRM and you're being held to something that doesn't work anymore or doesn't work with your specific market, right? Okay. So yeah, the simpler the tool to start with, the better. And you'll notice, that spreadsheet that we talked about has different tools for the 8 steps that are in that process. And you can just put that in, add your notes, who's the person, who's the company, did you resource them or, where did they come from? Did you research and connect with them? What was the response to that? Did you send an email? Did you get a response, etc.? And then you get a feel once you have this spreadsheet over a series of, weeks or months, you get a feel for, what, our email number 1 really stinks. I never get a response to email number 1. So reword email number 1, right? So the more data you have, the better the process gets over time. And if this is just a spreadsheet, then it's super easy to swap that out and change it for something else.
Yep.
Does anybody have a CRM they hate? We have. We actually, for the first, I would say 6 months we were in business, we were spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a product called Infusionsoft, and it's not its fault. I'm, just naming that because it doesn't even exist anymore. It was bought by a company called Keep, which actually does have a pretty good CRM, but it's not the fault of the CRM, but we were way too small to be spending thousands of dollars on a CRM. And we only had the 2 of us, John and myself. And, so essentially one person doing sales. And, there was just no reason for that kind of overhead. So I think a lot of aviation companies kind of fall into that trap of spending way more money and way more time than they need to. And then if I ask people who have Keep or HubSpot or Infusionsoft for a very simple report, do you know your numbers? Do you know how long it takes from a prospect to go from contact 1 to sale? They have no idea. They don't know how to run a report. They don't know how to work it, which doesn't mean the software is bad. It just means that it's not suited to their business.
So Paula, I would say I used to work for a company, and they created their own CRM system,
Yeah.
and it's so clunky. It was so frustrating. It was not simple. It wasn't easy steps like your Google Sheet. It was super complicated. It was written by engineers but used by a sales team.
Oh my gosh.
So
That sounds like a nightmare.
it was. It was.
Yeah. And, of course they want to help. The CRMs are trying to help you. So, they're providing suggested steps and automations and other things. And, even some of them even have workflows that you can just plug in. The problem is that gets so complicated so fast that you can't find your way around in it. And, people just stop using it. And that's the kiss of death for any system, is if your salespeople aren't using it, it's no good. The data becomes out of date. You can't get accurate data from it. And then it's useless. So any tool is only as good as the fact that people are using it or not. So I'd really suggest going simple. If you have a problem with your prospecting process, go simple with the tool, go simple with your steps. Do a 4-step process if you have to, rather than the 8-step process. But have a process and then add to it as you see fit, right? Okay. And that's the thing with any of these processes. They are not one size fits all, but they are super simple. Anybody can implement any one of these processes in a day or a week using very, very simple tools. So this one is approach. So once you've done prospecting, the next step of the wheel is making an approach. So you've identified somebody, or your call to action during the prospecting process is to schedule a demo or schedule a consultation. So a lot of us are in business to business aviation sales. This is a great step for us. In most cases, we'll have to provide something that is more custom than just marketing materials in order to get somebody from the pipeline or, further down the pipeline. So the tools that you need for this, you can do this with just email, phone, Zoom, and your spreadsheet or your Google Doc or whatever. And, the process is super simple. You need to schedule a call or schedule a Zoom meeting or whatever. We use Calendly. We've used Time Trade in the past. Both of them are great tools. Anything that makes it easier for people to schedule with you. We have a questionnaire that we send out prior to our consultation so that we ask people a bunch of nosy questions. And I think everybody who is doing a consultation would benefit from this. This does a couple of things. Number one, it helps you qualify the prospect. Do they have the money, authority, and need to buy your product or service? How much time should you spend preparing for this consultation based on the quality of the answers they're giving, etc. And then also it helps you deliver a much higher quality consultation or demo if you know what their pain points are, if you know about their organization, if you know who their competitors are, if you know something about what they've used in the past, what their bad experiences have been, what their most urgent problems are, then you can deliver a much better. All right. So, we were talking about a free consultation, which is a really important step, I think, in managing this sort of thing. And I really appreciate you jumping in, Stella, and carrying on from there. So,
no problem. We're all like, where did Paula go? Is it me or is it somebody else?
I have
We're all here, so I think it's Paula.
Right. Okay. So I think we talked about delivery, and we were talking about closing or following up after a sales presentation or after a consultation or demo. There's always one of 3 reactions to a demo or a sales call: yes, no, or not yet, right? And almost always it will be a not yet. Sometimes you'll get people who just are, grabbing their checkbook and writing you a check right on the spot and ready to proceed. But in most cases, especially in business to business and especially in aviation, your consultation or demo leads to a second consultation or demo that is in more depth, or to more people, or to a different set of people in the same organization, or covers different, deeper topics, or answers additional questions or things like that. So I'd love to hear what your guys's thoughts are on what happens next, what the not ready yets are in your world, and what some of the reasons are for that, or if this jives with you guys. I would say we probably have about a less than 20%, or about an 80% not yet out of this process. We almost never get a no, simply because we do a nice qualifying step with that questionnaire and everything, and people usually drop out of the process if they're answering the questionnaire, and then we end up not doing a demo because they self-select out of the process. and they say, you know what, this doesn't sound like it's for us, and which is great because it saves me time and it saves them time and energy, but then they understand better what we do. But once we get through this whole process of scheduling a demo, doing the questionnaire, doing a delivery of a demo, by the time we get to the close, we get a 90% probably is a more accurate number of the not yets, and a 10% of the let's continue the sales process. An absolute yes.
Well, and because 90% are in that not yet, you have to have a process
Mhm.
for maintaining that relationship for all
Mhm.
those not yets.
Exactly. Which is where we're going next. Because I think in a lot of cases, people drop it right here. They drop it right after the presentation or the consultation, and they say, you know what, we've done our best. They'll buy from us or they won't. We'll never talk to them again. And that is the worst thing that you can do, especially when you have a small group of prospects. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, and we're just going to kind of skip over this, you can use it as you see fit. And that is just the fact that you do need to actively sell your consultation or your demo. And that's what you do in your approach process. Is you basically the call to action for some of your social media, the call to action for some of your email marketing, for your newsletters, for your podcasts, for whatever it is that you do for that prospecting process. The call to action from that is often schedule a free consultation, schedule a demo. Let's take the next step. And a free consultation or a demo is a much easier next step than buy my product. So, we really do believe in selling your consultation as a step 2. All right. So what do you do with the not yets? You have a holding pattern. And, in aviation, of course, we're familiar with holding patterns. We spend a lot of time in holding patterns if we're flying GA aircraft. I always used to get stuck in Salt Lake City behind the FedEx guys. Because they're on a schedule, they're faster than my 172. They pretty much dominate the pattern at a commercial airport. And if you are a small general aviation aircraft, they tell you to go cool your heels in the holding pattern. So you get to fly around in circles until they give you permission to land. And that's what we do in sales as well, is we need to have a good, entertaining, fabulous holding pattern for our clients, where maybe we send them ebooks, we connect with them on LinkedIn, we comment on their posts, we meet with them at NBAA, we invite them to breakfast at NBAA, we call them on the phone once a quarter or whatever to let them know some new developments in the industry. We send them newsletters, we send them emails, we send them copies of our podcast, other things like that. So, a lot of these things are things that you can automate. You can use MailChimp or Constant Contact or something like that, or your CRM if it has the ability to do email automation. We recommend sending email at least once a month to your prospects, depending on the industry that you're in and depending on what your competitors are doing and other things like that. But you don't want to just send email. You want to make sure that there are multimedia in your holding pattern. So they're hearing from you in more than one way. And whether that's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, they're getting Christmas cards, they're getting, something on a frequent and regular basis. So all of these things, required tools, of course, you probably do need in order to run an efficient holding pattern. You need some kind of email broadcast tool. I would not recommend doing this from your Outlook, simply because, you need to be in compliance with the CAN-SPAM laws in different places. So, people who are on your list, you need to make sure that they want to continue to be on your list, and you're sending, a number of email, and you're able to schedule them out and make that easy. Another thing that's required, of course, phone. I think, that's still a big deal in our industry. You guys can disagree if you choose, and, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that if that's the case. And I do think you need to have content, because you can't be making, we have some salespeople that call us fairly frequently for different things, and it's always the same thing. So when do we want to get started with this project? And in some cases, it's like carpet for our house or whatever. And we keep putting that off because we've got other things that need to be done first. We want to do the carpet last. So, we don't want to keep hearing from the carpet sales guy saying, so what's your schedule? We don't know what the schedule is. There's 5 things in front of that. So if you have new content, if you have a market report, if you have an article on a particular topic or a question and answer guide or a buyer's guide or something like that, content I think is really, really important, because that gives you a reason to stay in touch with people that is not always about the transaction. It's not always directly buy my product. It's not making the relationship entirely transactional. It's giving as well as asking, right? Okay, so holding patterns, very important process, very important part of the process. Onboarding process. Of course, at the beginning of the sales process, you guys probably all have a very different scenario. If you're a broker, of course, you've got the letter of intent, you've got the pre-purchase inspection, you've got, a set of things that you need to do in the sales process or the purchase process. We're not going to talk about those things today because I don't know what those are for, everybody on the call. It's probably something different. But one thing I think everybody could do differently and better is an onboarding process. And this is something we've put together in our organization in the last 6 months. And I think it's helped a lot in terms of turnover and in terms of getting clients up to speed quickly, getting them value really quickly, getting some case studies really fast of, great results for people. So if we have a series of steps that we want people to follow in the first 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks of working together, that really helps. And even if you're selling something very simple, like Tough Guard sells a paint protector, and a lot of people use it wrong. They have a very specific process that they want people to follow. It's a 3-product thing. You use step 1, step 2, step 3, and you have to use it on a super clean airplane. So there's a process you have to go through even before you start applying the product. So the onboarding process could be videos, it could be educational materials, it could be best practices, other kinds of things. But you do want to make sure that you are following up with people saying, hey, here's how to get the best results from working with us. And, here's how we can make this work better, especially if it's a service or a complex product of some kind. So I guess some examples on the phone. I'm trying to think of who we've got that has a good example of a business that would have a great onboarding process. So we've got a couple of brokers. So you guys in the sales process, once the transaction takes place, you probably deliver some kind of a package to that person that has all of the documents that they need. Perhaps some other information about other partners that, this is how you crew your aircraft. Here's, if you haven't already resolved all of the insurance, all of the other problems that they're going to have next, here's some FAQs or some other educational materials about how to continue to have success with your airplane and not regret that purchase and feel horrible about the money you just spent because you have additional problems or it's not working for you the way you had hoped. If you're selling a service, again, you're probably going to want to do some great follow-up. So Trent, your company, I'm sure, as you sell a service, has a series of steps that you want people to take. And some of those will be more or less hands-on, depending on how that works, right?
Right, absolutely. Yep, we bring them on board, and then we also give them 45-minute demo of our software, and and then that they afterwards they know you're always welcome to reach out if you have more questions. So it's it's onboarding, but then it's continuous as they need help.
Right, and you might actually even continue that for weeks or months, or send them another part of this that one company does really, really well is sends them a questionnaire after 90 days. How are things going? Are you having any questions or problems, etc.? Or scheduling a phone call after 90 days saying, how are things going? Is there anything we can do to help resolve any problems that have come up? And oh, by the way, do you have any suggestions for us, or can we use you in a testimonial or a case study? And so that gives you a really nice entry into the next step in the process, right? Which is referrals and testimonials. Once again, tools serve the process, not the other way around. We don't want to let the tools drive the processes. And there are things like, CRMs, Calendly, Time Trade, project management tools. We use Basecamp for this, which I love because every single meeting we can record, we can get a transcript of, we put it in Basecamp. We can always go back and search for, what did we talk about in personal branding with this person? We made some decisions that we now need to go back and, provide additional support for. What decisions did we make back there? And we don't have to ask them again. We can go back to what was said earlier. So, some of these tools that do recordings, transcripts, other things like that really help the onboarding process, because then you sound really smart when you're talking with the customer in the future. And also, if Stella talks to a customer that I talked to last week, or if John talks to a customer 3 months from now, he knows everything that I know. So, that really helps us as an organization seem more together and respects the customer's time by not asking the same question more than once. So we consider that part of the sales process. A lot of people just, take their money and dump them, into, okay, here's your product. Bye. See you later. Good luck. We certainly don't want to do that, because we are in a small market and, we want people to have a great experience. So we find it well worth the time for this. Okay. So next step, referrals and testimonials. This is an example campaign, which is also a process, right? In this one, this is basically a Valentine's Day campaign that we've run a few times with some pretty good success. So basically, we research our prospects or our customers that left us within the last 6 years, and prospects who we gave a presentation to that didn't buy within the last 6 years. And for us, that's a nice sweet spot, because usually they're still in business. It's usually some of the same people, but something has changed in that amount of time. So they may have grown to the point where now they can afford us when they couldn't before, or they have different people in some parts of the company that maybe have a more flexible idea of what they want to do. So we come up with 20 to 50 names for this Valentine's Day Recapture campaign. The offer is something that we couldn't offer at the time. Maybe we have new services that we didn't have at the time. Or we can offer the same thing, but, their circumstances have changed. And also, some kind of a bonus or a gift certificate if they act in a timely way. So, by the end of February as an example. So, what do we include in this? We can send them a mailed package with a new catalog, with some tchotchkes or chocolates, for Valentine's Day. It's usually cool in the United States. So, they'll get there in the mail without turning into soup. Those kinds of things. And then we connect with them on social media again and send them emails. So it's a multimedia campaign. So we research our list of 20 to 50 names. We send them a package in the mail. We engage with them on social media. We send them 3 to 5 emails. Did they schedule an appointment? Yes, no, or maybe. Again, we go back to our other processes. If they don't schedule an appointment, we add them back to the holding pattern with those notes. If they do, then we continue the process with another consultation or quote or demo.
So if you notice, the total of contacts before they actually decide to get serious is somewhere between 8 and 12.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just aviation, that's anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Or more.
Yeah, or more.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's go ahead.
Another part of this is, if they're still in the not yet category and you're using a spreadsheet or a CRM, you can make notes in there as to why. Their budget doesn't allow it, their CEO just quit, whatever it is. And then that kind of gives you a timeline for when you might want to follow up with them again.
Absolutely. So in this process, we go back to our Google Sheet, and honestly, we have not used a CRM in years. We do use Constant Contact or MailChimp, but we don't do anything but this. And so I go back to my spreadsheet. I look at the notes, over the last 6 years. These are the people that I think are the most likely to buy from us. I pick 20 to 50 names and we run that campaign. So all of this feeds into each other. You start doing this, and the more you do it, the better it gets all the way around, right?
Before you select a CRM, should you not have one, you need to have appropriate expectations.
Mhm.
Some will do more than others, some will do less than others. It just depends on what you're willing to pay, basically.
Right. And the most important thing is that you use it, whatever it is. So, rather than switching CRMs or buying a CRM, focus on the process first, is I guess the main point of
Exactly.
take one thing away from today is focus on the process first and keep the tools simple, right? Okay, so this is a trade show event, and I know we're running a little low on time. I want to make sure that we're covering everything to everybody's satisfaction. So slow me down or stop me if there's a campaign you'd like to talk more about. This one runs over the course of a full year, which a lot of people are going to say that is absolutely insane. That is absolute overkill. But if you make it part of your regular holding pattern or your regular marketing process, then the only thing that you're doing is adding some specific calls to action to get people to come see you at NBAA. So, you're just tweaking your holding pattern in a sense to make sure that you're including reasons they should come see you at NBAA, the fact that you're going to be at NBAA, the fact that you went last year and you had a great time, the fact that you're having a breakfast on Tuesday morning, the fact that, all of these things are going on. So if you have a booth, especially, then you definitely want to start early and, give people a reason to come to our booth because we're doing a trivia quiz and, you could win like Eris did last year. He did the Lego Concorde or the Concorde aircraft, the Lego kit as a prize for his trivia challenge. That was the ultimate prize. So in order to be entered to win the Concorde, you had to enter his aviation insurance trivia quiz. And so, that kind of forced people to learn a little bit more about his product or service, enter to win a really fun prize. And, somebody won it. And that gives you another opportunity to talk about it. So, after the fact, that follow up of awarding your prize and announcing it. And it's just fun. Everybody loves Legos. Everybody loves the Concorde. All of those things are really cool. So if you have a campaign that you can support with the infrastructure that you've already put together with your holding pattern, if you have a printed newsletter, you don't have to have all of this. This is kind of an extreme example. But if you're posting all the time already, if you're sending out emails already, you can just add a couple of promo emails about the event, talking specifically about your trivia quiz and about the Lego Concorde and about all of those things. You can put a landing page together so that people will schedule a consultation with you while they're there. All of those things are really fun to do. I like doing invitation postcards because, mail is, in the United States anyway, mail is still really good in this country and really cheap for as effective as it is. Questions about trade show marketing process and how it fits in with your holding pattern? And actually, I put this in referrals and testimonials, but we do everything on this cycle during a trade show. We're doing prospecting, we are doing approaching, we are reinforcing our holding pattern. So people who are in our holding pattern, we try to see them personally, shake their hands, talk with them about their problems, etc. We don't usually do sales specifically at the show. I know everybody says they do sales at the show, but that's, like Boeing is announcing that Dassault is announcing a sale of a fleet of Falcons or that kind of thing. Those things happen months before the show. They just announce them at the show because that's when they get the most attention. So sales, we don't do so much, but everything else on this list we do at the show, right?
Yeah, sales is sort of incidental for us. If it happens, it's because somebody was going to talk to us anyway.
Right, because the rest of the process is strong. That's another thing I love is, I'm not really a salesperson at heart. I love it when the marketing process does the heavy lifting for me. So all I have to do is follow up appropriately and the sales kind of make themselves if I do good presentations, good prospecting, good approaches, good holding pattern, etc.
Not very often that it happens. but I can remember a call when we were talking with a gentleman who says, "Fine, how do I make this work?"
Yeah. What do
And
I do to
well,
buy?
you give me your credit card number, and he did.
Exactly. I know we were kind of overkilling the information delivery, which we do, as this workshop is an example of probably overkill of information delivery. So hopefully you guys are getting some value out of this and not feeling overwhelmed.
Paula, one other one I would add in here is podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be another way. We have used newsletters in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and as most everybody on this call knows, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort to put it together. So I definitely agree with it being a higher expense. But a podcast, you
Mm-hmm.
can have a 5 or 10 minute conversation with somebody and get that same message, and somebody can, instead of reading it on their computer, they can listen to it as they're working out, or so that would be another avenue of marketing that I would include in that list.
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. Not everybody has the ability to or interest in doing a podcast, but if you can get transcripts which go on your blog, so that's printed material. You get video if you're doing video. You get, as you said, the audio file that people, goes on Spotify and Google Play and, all of those networks and things like that. So, that's a really, really low cost, high impact marketing activity.
And then you can get a little snip. I'm sorry to interrupt, Paula. Then you can get little snippets of that video and use that for many, many weeks going forward for social media.
Oh, yeah. Use that on Google Shorts. You can use that on TikTok. There's so many things you can do with a podcast. I think that's a really, really great value. And thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's an excellent example. And then, in your podcast, you can mention, hey, we're going to be at NBAA. We are giving away a Lego Concorde for people who answer our trivia quiz correctly. So study up about aviation insurance and, we'll see you there. And, that's a great segue that, gets people interested in things. So lots of ways to do this. It's almost unlimited, but the more media, the better. And, if you think it's overkill, it's probably not. I like to have marketing carry all the water for our company and do very little sales. I talk about that a lot. I really dislike doing sales calls or anything else. So I like to have the automated pieces and the semi-automated pieces like podcasts, do all of the work for me, and have clients come to me already sort of aware of what we do, what our style is, and other things, because they have consumed some of our content. So, yeah, excellent point. All right. So next steps, which part of your sales and marketing process, this is the question we opened with, and you might feel a little more comfortable answering that question now that we know what they are. Which part of your sales and marketing process of these 5 needs the most help right now? And which process do you think is the most relevant or the most helpful way to augment that, or to serve that section of the process? And yeah, if you're a client, of course, schedule your office hours and let's talk about the process you want to work on. We have another 5 minutes in this session, and I'll be online for questions and things like that. If there's a campaign or a part of the process that you want to dive into more, we'd be happy to do that as well. But one thing I do want to point out is that attending a workshop without taking action is like watching cooking shows on Netflix, which I do for things that I will never make, like rack of lamb or whatever. I don't even like lamb, but I like watching cooking shows, and that's entertainment for me. But hopefully this for you has been more than entertainment. Hopefully you have some thoughts that you didn't have before. I'd love to hear in the chat, or if you want to verbalize anything about what was the most useful thing that you learned today. I'd love to hear what that would be.
Well, and Paula, also our book this month ties in with this perfectly, because it is process.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have it on my desk. I have my old book on the desk, but the book about processes, we're going to be doing the the book club conversation 2 weeks from today on that. So we'll be talking about some of the specifics from the book to kind of reinforce what we've learned today, as well as see what the similarities and differences are between different thoughts, different schools of thought on processes.
Well, one question for you. I couldn't download the working document. Did I do that wrong?
The Google Doc or the workbook?
Yeah, sorry, the Google Sheet.
The Google Sheet.
Acting worksheet. Does that need to be emailed or is it my system? Maybe it's my software.
Did you get an error of some kind, or what did it tell you when you tried to click the link?
There was no hyperlink for me to click.
Oh,
there's no link for the spreadsheet in the chat, Paula.
Okay, let me see if I can paste that again. I may have mistyped that, because that's what happens when I'm doing that's what happens when I'm doing the multitasking. That's why I ask you to manage the chat for me. So
Perfect.
Did you process a link? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I had the workbook. It just didn't have the Google Sheet hyperlink. Perfect. Or at least for me, it didn't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, apologies. I may have cut that off. But yeah, hopefully that works for you. And again, if you've got a CRM that you love, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. But if you don't love your CRM, or you can't get the data out of it that you want or you need, then, maybe taking a step back from that and figuring out what your actual process should be, and then reprogramming or, getting somebody to help you set up your CRM correctly is, probably the best step. So, yeah.
Paula, the imitation is the highest form of flattery, right? So it's a whole lot easier to grab something and then adjust, as opposed to building something from scratch. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, that's actually the intention for any of these processes is don't use them as they are written. You can use them as the basis to create your own process that makes more sense for your company or your situation. All right. Okay. So, if you are one of our clients, of course, we'd be happy to talk with you about any of these processes and how we can use the content that we're already building to implement or shore up or make better whatever processes you have. And if you are not currently a client, we'd be delighted to have you. If you're the kind of person that enjoys process and enjoys automating parts of your marketing system and enjoys delivering good educational materials to your clients, then you are a person that we'd love to have as a client in the aviation industry. So we'd be delighted to do a consultation with you and send you a questionnaire and have you schedule an appointment and do that whole process. So then you get to see it firsthand, and also we'll be able to kind of address your situation, what's working for you and what's not, and how we might be able to help you get more customers with less effort, less frustration, less hassle, and so on. Attending today, I really appreciate you sticking with us even through the crash. And we always love it when that happens. It's like my biggest nightmare. So I'll entertain questions anytime from anybody via any venue. So I appreciate you guys caring about good marketing, and I appreciate you guys caring about your customers enough to invest the time today and hopefully make some changes to your situation so that your business will improve, your customers will be happier, and life will be better, right? That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon.
Catch y'all later. See you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.